All right, boys or girls, I just added another lesson, another program. Basically, this is an older version that I recommend for you to use because it will give us the answers, and you are going to see that one is being in process at this moment. This one, all you need to do is the following. You double click on it, and the VCE option, you have to drag and drop that one in downloads. Once you have this in downloads, you will copy all of these files to the installation where you have the VCE program. If you go to your files here, you will see the demo, and then you do a Control V, V as in Victor, and then with adding permission, you will replace all the files. Now, the reason because I recommend to use this older version is because when we are doing the exam, it's easy to look at the answers at the beginning, and it's very, very useful. So let's start our first exam. We're going to delete the history completely. Let's clear the history of all the exams. We're going to do the first one for about 30 questions only. And here you're going to add your name. Training mode, 120 minutes. Let's go. Begin. So which type of address is the public IP address of a NAT device? This is actually an easy one. It's actually the global, the inside global, if I'm not mistaken. Let's double check there. There you go. Next one. Which IPv6 address type provides communication between subnets and cannot route to the internet? This is actually like a private IP address that we have there. In this case, it's the unique local. We double check there, it's good. Every time you see the green color, it means the answer is correct. When you are starting doing practice exams and practice tests, you have this one available, but you can also disable it in case you need to and feel like you are in the actual real exam on exam day. So please be informed about this. What about this one? Which two actions are performed by the weighted random early detection mechanism? Okay, so it can mitigate congestion by preventing the queue from filling up. That is one of the question. And the other one is about priority. It drops lower priority packets before it drops higher priority packets. Okay, guarantees higher priority packets. Let's double check on this one. Okay, we are good. We are good. Those questions are very tricky, but we're good so far. What about this one? It says, which set of action satisfied the requirement for multi-factor authentication? Okay, multi-factor authentication. Do you guys remember that? What is that? It's basically username and password, then a notification in the app. There is an authentication application that works along. There you go. This one is AXI and hexadecimal. When configuring WLAN with WPA2 PSK in the Cisco Wireless LAN Controller GUI, which two formats are available to select? That is actually option B and C. I know that one by heart. What about this one? Refer to the exhibit. With which metric was the route host 172.16.0.202 learned? This is actually this one, option B. And the reason is because the lowest administrative distance is 90. Probably is using, actually is 110. It's using OSPF. And this is actually because of the mask. The lowest mask is the winning in this case, the administrative distance, and the lowest metric. We have the lowest mask, but basically it's taking administrative distance and the lowest metric. This metric, that is what is taking the administrative distance, but as well as the lowest metric, and that is option B. That's a tricky one. And you can see is getting to the 172.16.0.128, which is related to this network. What about this one? Which type of wireless encryption is used for WPA2 in pre-shared key mode? If I'm not mistaken, is option B, but let's just double check on that one. Is option A. I was mistaken. So, which type of wireless encryption is used for WPA2 in pre-shared key mode? Is AES-256. 256 is the correct answer. I was incorrectly there, selecting the correct one. What about this one? This one, I remember that this one goes here. This one is the double tagging. 802.1q double tagging is the configure VACL. ARP spoofing related to ARP inspection. There you go. And then the root guard goes at the end on wanted BPUs on port fast enable interfaces. And this one is configure BPU guard unwanted superior BPDUs. Unwanted superior BPDUs. That is the correct answers. Those are the correct answers. Let's continue. Yeah, it seems like I got incorrect answers there. The root is there and the BPDU there. So maybe I did something wrong here. The root guard is there for the unwanted superior BPDUs, and the unwanted BPDUs on port fast enable interfaces is the BPDU guard. So I was mistaken. This one I know for a fact is option C. No, it's option C there. So which one is A here? So you have to be really, really careful with these questions because they are very tricky. This one I know is B. Let's go with the next. Let's go. Okay, we didn't really read those. So let's go reading those. The first one says, which output display the adjacent data representation? That will be the C. The C option will be the correct one. We need to select the C option, but in this case, the C option is the A option. So be careful about those kind of questions. If there are questions similar to this, be careful about those. Next one. This is actually an easy one. Which IPv6 address is equivalent to IPv4 interface loopback address 127.0.0.1 is colon 1. Next. And we need to figure out, how does ARP provide first redundancy? It uses a shared virtual MAC and virtual IP address to a group of routers that serve as a default gateway for hosts on a LAN. That is the correct one. Let's just read it again, the explanation on that one. How does a HSRP provide first hop redundancy? It uses a shared virtual MAC and virtual IP address to a group of routers that serve as the default gateway for hosts on a LAN. Next. This one I know for a fact this one is D, but it's actually A there. So be careful with these tricky questions. An engineer must configure a /30 subnet between two routers. Which usable IP address and subnet combination meets this criteria? In this case, I recommend that you go and review your CCNA subnetting books because this is subnetting. You have to subnet correctly in order to know this one. It's a tricky one. What about this one? Which statement about the nature of NAT overload is true? Okay, it applies one-to-many relationships to internal IP address. Sounds like B is correct for me. What about this? Refer to the exhibit. An engineer is bringing up a new circuit to MPLS provider on gigabit 0/1 interface of router 1. The new circuit uses eBGP and Teams. The route to VLAN 25 from the BGP path. What's the expected behavior of the traffic for the route 10.10.13.0/25. And basically it will not change until we remove the OSPF route. That is one of the ones I knew, but looks like this one is a little bit different. So the route will be learned via gigabit 0/0. It remains in the routing table. No, it's a the 10.10.13.0/25 is updated in the routing table as being learned on gigabit 0/1. Looks like an O, but it's actually a 0/1. And where do you see that interface? Gigabit 0/1. Do we see it there? I don't really see it there. I know this is the right one for a fact, but I don't really see gigabit 0/1. I know it's this one with the network IP address. I don't see it. Let's check and validate this one. It's actually correct, but I don't see the gigabit. They are not really displaying the interfaces as much as I can tell. So we just have to somehow magically. Oh, in the question, the gigabit is in the question. So it's actually in the question. They stated in the question that we are using gigabit 0/1. And that's the way that we are learning the routes. They are adding this IP address to the routing table, and it's being learned by a gigabit 0/1. So be careful and read carefully those questions because they are very, very tricky. What about this one? When OSPF learned multiple paths to a network, how does it select that route? A route. Okay, as far as I remember, we need to use cost. It divides the 100 Mbps by the bandwidth of an existing interface to calculate their lowest cost. There you go. What about this one? Okay, this one is tricky. Only control-based network decouples the control plane and data plane. Seems to me like that one. Which statement correctly compares traditional networks and control-based networks? I think it's this one. Traditional and control-based networks abstract policies from device configurations. Let's double check. Is actually incorrect. Let's read the question again. Which statement correctly compares traditional networks and control-based networks? Only control-based networks decouple the control plane and data plane. That is very related to theory. So we have to review the theory there in SDNs and automation and programmability mainly. Next one. How can Cisco Discovery Protocol be used? It allows the switch to discover devices connected to the ports, determine the hardware path flow, determine the IP address, all of them. What about IP addresses there? We need to find the correct ones. For me, it seems like these and these are correct. Let's double check on those. It's actually A and B. A and B. So the one with the zeros there. Which two formats can an IPv6 address, this one that we have, be written? So the answer A is correct. We got that one right. We need to remember about abbreviation of IPv6 addresses, but we are not doing a lot of abbreviation for this option B because we are using the zeros there. So that is a tricky one. Interesting. Let's go with the following. A router running ERP has learned the same route from two different paths. Which parameter does the router use to select the best path? And as far as I am concerned, it's metric because we are using ERP. If we were working along with OSPF, maybe it would be cost, but we are doing ERP. This one I know is for a fact that the VLANs are not correctly. The native VLANs are having a mismatch. So this is an easy one. We have VLAN 1 here and VLAN 99. There's a mismatch in the VLANs. Should be 99 for both. What about this one? I see two MAC addresses that are being learned, dynamically learned. And what else do we see? I see a shutdown there. Refer to the exhibit. Which two statements about the interface that are generated the output are true? I see a security violation count on 1 for generating with a maximum at SNMP trap is generated when the maximum number of secure MAC addresses is reached on the interface. I don't think it's correct. I think C and E are the right ones. Let's double check on that. I am mistaken. So it's actually the one that we thought it was incorrect. An SNMP trap is generated when the maximum number of secure MAC addresses is reached on the interface. Let's keep that one in mind in case we encounter similar questions to this one. Next one. Which mode allows access points to be managed by Cisco wireless LAN controllers? This is lightweight. This is actually the lightweight. So let's just double check. There you go. Amazing. Good job. What about this one? This one, as far as I remember, is referred to exhibit. Is actually using RIP, and the longest prefix is B. Refer to exhibit, which refer to the exhibit. Which route does R1 select for traffic that is destined to 192.168.16.2? The correct answer is B. Is actually using RIP and is using. Is actually, I think it's ISIS. This one looks like ISIS and the longest prefix match. Let's do some research in the internet. Let's go to the internet and look for this one and find out if there is an explanation for this one. Let's do that. Let's do it. Let's do it. I think it's related to the RIP option that I was talking about. RIP or ISIS. Let's do something. Let's find the administrative distance, CCNA AD table. Let's do some images there. So 115 is actually for ISIS. I was good from the beginning. So it's using the longest prefix match and it's using ISIS in this case. Let me close those. And this one as well. Let's continue. Hopefully we will get a good score on this one. We are doing some help, getting some help because we are starting with questions, but when you are advanced in this, it's better to disable the show answer option or not use it as much as possible. A network engineer must have 20 network configurations within the customer environment. Which protocol allows the engineer to perform this function using Cisco iOS MIP? SNMP, if I'm not mistaken, and let's go with the next one. What about this one? So it decentralizes. What are two characteristics of a control-based network? It decentralizes the control plane and allows each device to take its own forwarding decisions. It moves the control plane to a center point. Let's go with A and B. I am mistaken. All right, so it's actually A is correct. It moves the control plane to the center point, but it allows southbound APIs to communicate between architectural layers. It uses northbound and southbound APIs to communicate between architectural layers. That will be the correct one if I'm not mistaken. Now we are good now. What about this? Which two capabilities of Cisco DNA Center make it more sensible? I know it supports third-party network equipment with SDKs. I remember this one at some point. And it uses APIs, REST APIs that allows external applications to interact natively with Cisco DNA Center. There you go. Infrastructure as a service. An organization has decided to start using cloud provided services. Which cloud service allows that organization to install its own operating system on a virtual machine? Infrastructure as a service. This one, for a fact, looks like A for me will be a valid IP address. But let's double check the other ones. Doesn't seem to be correct IPv6 addresses. Nope. It's A. There you go. An IPv6 address is represented as 8 groups of 4 hexadecimal digits. And there is the example, one of the examples of IPv6 addresses. And the one we got correctly configured from this specific output. What about the next one? Which option about JSON is true? As far as I remember, describe a structured data that includes array and that B is the right one. What about this one? The feasible successor. The route calculates the feasible distance of all paths to the destination route, which 2 actions influence the EIGRP route selection process. Okay, what is the other one? The advertised distance, the router must use the advertised distance as the metric for a given route. Seems reasonable for me. Calculates the best path to the destination route and assign its feasible successor. I think C and D are the right ones. There you go. Let's end this exam and you are good. So we got 100. We do use some help from the exam, but the important is that we are getting familiarized with these type of questions. How are we going to handle this during the exam pressure? What kind of problems or issues with this type of questions are we going to encounter? So that is basically what we're going to do right now. According to my guide, the next step, let me just double check lesson 55. Actually, I don't see it there any longer. What is going on? I usually use a script there, but I don't see it for some reason. Let me see something here. I'm going to run this script and hopefully I will be able to figure out how to proceed from now. So let me just run the script. It's actually out of the scope of this course because this is Python. So if you want, guys, I can share with you this script. I'm using it to practice and prepare better for the certification exam, but it's taking a little bit of time. So let's just be patient. I'm going to stop the recording for a few seconds. All right, so I was able to run the script and I got this guide that we are going to use along this week in order to complete some labs and some practice. Most of the labs are in Packet Tracer, so we don't really have to worry about those. I can create a couple of them in GNS3 in order to have a better understanding of those, but we should be all good because all of them should be available in the Packet Tracer. So I just replaces this and we should be finished with the lesson for today. Hopefully we will have more practice next time. We will be doing another exam with more explanation. So take care, guys. It's been a pleasure and I see you around. Goodbye.